Welcome to the new Muse interface. Let's go ahead and tour around, check things out, and I'm going to explain one of the most important aspects of it, which is the Breakpoint Bar and Scrubber. So let's go ahead and create a new site. So File and New Site. You'll notice that this box looks quite different. So now we have a drop down here that says choose between fluid width and fixed width. Basically what this means is responsive design or fixed width, which would be the old style of Muse where we're creating alternate layouts. Since this video is on responsive design, let's choose fluid width. And as I said, anytime you see that word fluid, think responsive. And let's look at some of the advanced options here. So for the most part, we leave all of these settings exactly the same. You may just want to change your resolution and set that to high DPI if you have a Retina device. Otherwise, I'm just going to change the columns here to 3 and click OK. So now we have a new site. This looks exactly like the old Muse. Let's jump into a page. So on the home page here, you'll see that we have this brand new area at the top, and it's called the Breakpoint Bar and Scrubber. It's this purple section up here. Now, if you don't see that, it's possible that the breakpoint bar is turned off. And you can actually turn that on by just either right-clicking or control-clicking up here and clicking Hide Breakpoints. Your site might look like this when you initially launch, and we can turn on Show Breakpoints to get that back. Now, the way that this bar works is it defines different areas to show you where your breakpoints are. So as of right now, it says 960, and we can basically design a website as we always did in Muse. So let's just go ahead and add a content block here. I'll just make this a gray box initially. Okay. And now let's say we're done designing our layout and we want to start checking on how it responds at different sizes. That's where this Breakpoint Bar Scrubber comes into play. So as I mouse over this kind of gray grabber bar here, it says drag to simulate browser width. So let's click on that and start dragging it inwards. So this is simulating how the browser is going to shrink and what your content is doing. So as you can see, by default, this box in the middle is actually kind of shrinking based on that content. And that's a new setting in Muse. If at this point I've decided that my content no longer works, we could add a breakpoint. And the way that you do that is by clicking this plus button. It says create a new breakpoint. So if I click that, you can see that now we have a different colored area within here. And it says it's at 696 pixels. And if I mouse over that, it actually shows us that we have a breakpoint from 0 to 696. And then we have another one here from 696 to 960, and then upwards beyond. You can also change breakpoint properties by control-clicking or right-clicking on them and going breakpoint properties. What that's going to do is bring up an options box here and allow you to change things like the color that you're using at the top. This would just be for your own organization. And then you could go ahead and adjust the kind of specific pixel dimensions. Let's say you didn't mean to put one at 696. You like having one at 690. Then you can just simply adjust that, and we could change things like the margins and the columns and click OK. So now our breakpoint is there at 690. If you've decided that you no longer need a breakpoint or that you mistakenly added one, you can right-click or control-click on it and select Delete Breakpoint, and that's going to go back to the original. Now, an interesting thing about this is, let me bring that breakpoint back up. If I drag the scrubber out, let's say to about there, and I think, oh, maybe I want to make an edit on my site. Well, notice how Muse isn't really letting us. It gives us this kind of prompt that says, click to jump to breakpoint. You can only edit your content on a breakpoint. You cannot edit it in the middle. So if we click, see it's going to jump us to the closest breakpoint. And it'll be the same if we're on this breakpoint and we scale down. And let's say we want to edit. Nope, it's going to jump back to the closest breakpoint. You need to make sure if you do want to edit content at this size, that first you've added a new breakpoint there. And then you can go ahead and reshuffle things around. Another really important aspect of this breakpoint bar at the top is this little double arrow, and it says click to allow page to expand. Let me show you how this works. If I drag the page bigger than this 960, you see how the page limitations are staying set at 960. Basically, 960 is the maximum width, and anything beyond that is just going to be dead space, unless we have a full width element on the site. If I click this double arrow, it now lets the page expand beyond. So now when I drag it out, you can see that the site is actually staying kind of pinned or touching to the sides of the browser. And I'll show you how this works a little bit using these boxes. So let me jump back to the 960 breakpoint, and I'm just going to put 3 boxes on the page like this. Okay, I'm just going to align them to my column guides. There you go. Okay, perfect. So if I leave this locked, the page width, and I scale out, they just stay there. They don't do anything special. If I unlock this and allow the page to expand, see how they're expanding outwards with it. So that's a really important setting that you'll need to know, and sometimes you may forget that this is actually locked. It can be in different states depending on your master page or your specific page, so just pay attention to that. That's an overview of the Breakpoint Bar and Scrubber. You'll get really familiar with it throughout this course, since adding breakpoints is really the foundation of responsive design.